Roger, the question is why you think you singled out only anger as a biological reaction?
Because that's the one that we have the least acceptance of. The other ones are all, there's a whole range of biological reactions. So if someone has this idea of liberation and enlightenment, they often have this idea that anger is unenlightenment or resistance or blame. And when we look at it, and you look at, let's say, some theoretical enlightened person, and a friend of theirs comes that they haven't seen for 20 years, and they're a very close friend that they love dearly. To me, it makes sense that they're going to see the friend and they're going to, like, wow, where have you come from? Or start crying out of excitement, or, and no one has any objection against that biological reaction, right? That's fine. Enlightened person can have that biological reaction. And it makes sense. Biologically, they see someone that they haven't seen for a long time, and there is a reaction of surprise or excitement or whatever. There has to be a biological reaction in a circumstance. It would be unreasonable for that person, the friend, to walk in, and for the person, the theoretically enlightened person, to just remain completely neutral. That's what we often think when we hear about equanimity. We think about neutrality, but we think about it on a biological level as well. So we think that the person has to be biologically neutral, whereas the equanimity that's being spoken about is an equanimity on the level of one's attitude, right? An internal equanimity. The external is very different. So we can have a biological reaction on the external, and the internal can remain equanimous. So if the friend comes in and we see an excited reaction, then it makes sense and no one has an issue with that. But on the other hand, if someone is being annoying and then the theoretical enlightened person gets angry at them, then we think, oh, that's very unenlightened of them. They're not enlightened. But where's the difference? There is a circumstance and there's a biological reaction to the circumstance. Nisargadatta, thankfully, there were sages in life that made it very apparent that these biological reactions are exactly that. So 1 minute he's getting angry, telling someone to leave, you've been here 2 weeks and you're still asking me these stupid questions, get out. And then the person makes a joke, let's say, and Nisargadatta laughs at the joke. Next moment. So the biological reaction has happened, and then there's no attachment to it. It doesn't get extended in horizontal time. So the person is then fresh for the next moment. And even Ramana, it doesn't get reported, but Ramana used to get angry at his attendant, get angry at the cooks if they weren't doing the preparations correctly. And sometimes the sage is presented in a light that makes it easy for us to make false assumptions about what this understanding is really about. So you're right, it's not just anger or sadness that are biological reactions. There's a whole range of biological reactions, and the point is those biological reactions are not a disturbance of our peace, except when there's a certain attitude that resists them from being there. So once we understand, once the working mind understands, there are going to be biological reactions based on the design preferences of the body and the circumstance it finds itself in. And then those biological reactions are allowed to happen, seen as part and parcel of life. So Ramesh made it clear, this understanding won't make someone a perfect human being. They will still have their shortcomings and their good points. The understanding is not an understanding that then suddenly magically delivers pleasure, pleasure, pleasure to everyone else. It's an understanding that understands that I will function according to destiny, sometimes pleasure and sometimes pain, sometimes delivering pleasure to the other and sometimes delivering pain to the other, sometimes delivering pleasure to myself and sometimes pain to myself. Not my doing, but a happening. And with that understanding, there is an internal equanimity with whatever happens.